Thank you. I now recognize Ms. Lesko from Arizona for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Rep. Ruiz's opening statement, he said he doesn't want the COVID investigation to be political. I couldn't agree more. Yet in the next breath, he accused one of the witnesses of writing a white supremacist book, which is political salvo designed to discredit the witness. Then his first question wasn't about COVID-19 at all. It was all about a non-COVID related book that Dr. Wade wrote in the past, and a poster board was held over his head designed for political theater. Then Rep. Raskin went after President Trump for 5 minutes instead of asking a question. With all due respect, I contend that some of my Democratic colleagues are the ones making the COVID investigation political. Why they don't want to investigate the origins of COVID-19 that killed millions of people, I will never understand. My first question is for Dr. Redfield. A witness in our roundtable last week said that it was a no-brainer that the virus came from the Wuhan lab. When you were director of the CDC, did Dr. Fauci ever explain to you why he didn't believe the virus came from the Wuhan lab and why he actively worked to silence that theory?
Dr. Fauci's position, as those who thought of spillover, took the position that it was most likely a spillover event because that's what happened with SARS and that's what happened with MERS, right? And I think it's important to look at, prior to 2012, we didn't really have another mechanism other than nature. We weren't doing gain-of-function research, right? I'm a clinical virologist. I tried to explain to Dr. Fauci, who's an immunologist, that this virus, SARS and MERS, when they infected man from the intermediate host, civet cat in the case of SARS and a camel in the case of MERS, they never learned how to go human to human. So those original outbreaks were less than 1,000 people, and the epidemics died. And so when everyone thought this was SARS-like, well, it's gonna die too. But this virus was immediately the most infectious virus, not the most, I think probably right behind measles, virus that we've ever seen infect man. So I immediately said, wait a second, this isn't natural. And then you go back and look at the literature and you find in 2014, this lab actually published a paper that they put the H2 receptor into humanized mice so it can infect human tissue. And then you learn that the new COVID, which came from bats, now can hardly replicate in bats.
Yeah.
So how does that happen? So I said that my view as a virologist, again, my hypothesis, and I never discredited them for their hypothesis, it's the spillover, was that this was most likely to come from the lab. And we need to aggressively investigate both hypotheses.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have another question for you, Dr. Redfield. In a recent Energy and Commerce Oversight hearing, I asked the NIH acting director about the NIH's gross negligence in monitoring the EcoHealth Alliance grant and subgrant to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He admitted that we might not have had all of the information and research reports from WIV and EcoHealth. He insisted, however, that he was sure that the coronavirus research at WIV was completely unrelated to SARS-CoV-2. With the information we know and the fact that China deleted data and asked NIH to delete data, do you believe that we can have certainty that the virus did not come from the Wuhan lab and that U.S. funding was not used for COVID-19 related research?
Yeah, absolutely, we can't do that. I will say, if you go back and look, it's declassified now, and I'm sure you'll all have your classified briefings, but the declassified information now, in September of 2019, 3 things happened in that lab. One is they deleted the sequences. It was highly irregular. So researchers don't usually like to do that. Second thing they did was they changed the command and control of the lab from the civilian control to the military control. Highly unusual, and I've been involved in dual-use labs when I was in the military. And the third things they did, which I think is really telling, is they let a contractor redo the ventilation system in that laboratory. So I think clearly there was strong evidence that there was a significant event that happened in that laboratory in September. It's now been declassified. You can read it. I'm sure there's more classified information around it.
Thank you. Dr. Redfield, the New York Post reported that you stated, I could use the word cover-up, but I don't know that, so I'm not going to speculate that. Do you believe there was a cover-up? And if so, why would federal agencies work with legacy media to silence scientists and other Americans asking questions about the origins of SARS-CoV-2?
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of quoting the New York Post. I don't think I used the word cover-up, okay? I think there was an attempt to misguide, redirect the debate, but I wouldn't have used the word cover-up.
Thank you very much, and I yield back.